After looking at Nightingale 2 weeks ago, I thought it would only make sense to look at its closest competitor, Enshrouded, next. While the two aren't identical, they're both aiming to claim the survival crafty crown this year and next, and both are reasonably deep into their early access production cycles. Nightingale opts for whimsy with its Victorian-era trappings and uniquely designed individual realms, while Enshrouded is offering a more meat-and-potatoes content-rich open-world experience. It utilizes voxels for its terrain, which has its performance drawbacks but does allow for more organic exploration. I had fun with Nightingale, but thought it could use a few more activities, so will Enshrouded fill that gap for me? Let's take a closer look. Obviously, the first thing I wanted to do was make a silly-looking guy to punch trees with, so I was a little disappointed in the lack of any sliders or body morphing. You're just restricted to presets and changing small things like hair and eye color. I still managed to find some fun with it, though. Got a real Geralt on a deserted island kind of look for me. Oh no! What is this look? Well, now it's starting to look like a football helmet. And the beard's almost like a face mask. Okay, well now he just looks like Bluto from Popeye joined an emo band. This is perfect. When I look at this guy, this is definitely the voice that I think of when I look at this guy. They call me Kid Bluto. Oh, you're living in my world now. My world 1. I hope that in a future update, the character creation can be a little more granular, because a lot of the game is just you alone in the wilderness, occasionally fighting enemies, so I'd love to be able to connect to my character more, even if they're a very ridiculous character. Basic options like height, weight, and facial feature adjustments would go a long way towards allowing more creative user expression. After creating a world set in Popeye's hometown, I'm given the usual fantasy spiel about a weird, creepy man bringing a potion to the queen and getting everyone in the kingdom hooked on that mystical blue sauce. Maybe it's just me, but if a weird, creepy guy came into my courtroom with a glowing blue potion, I'd just assume they were trying to poison me at worst, or some kind of con artist huckster at best. Either way, a day in the stocks and the townspeople are given tomatoes to throw. Good fun for all. This glowing blue juice, which I assume is Faygo, causes a lot of addiction and misery, but don't worry, it gets better. The apocalypse happens. At that point, the remaining people on Earth set to a rescue plan involving these alchemical flame chambers, and sometime in the future, that's when our hero emerges. No, close it back up, Ah, shit. After reaching a talking flame and getting super psyched about it, yeah, flame! I was sent out into the world to start undoing the damage that's been done by the Shroud. This Shroud is one of the primary components of the game, a deadly mist that is corrupting the land and its inhabitants, and one you can't stay in for very long without dying, but I'll get to that in a little bit. First, I needed to find a suitable home base, which the game sorta does for you, but after that point you'll be doing it yourself elsewhere in the world, so fine. The flame altars you craft and plant not only serve as mapping out a buildable area for your base, but also act as fast travel points on the map, and these altars don't take a lot of resources to put together, making them very handy. Of course, the game balances against this by putting a cap on the maximum amount of altars active at a time, but you'll be able to increase that number as you power up the altar and its flame over the course of the campaign. At this point, the flame directed me towards another possible survivor, just on the other end of some shroud fog, and it was here that I began to run into the first of a long-running pattern over my early playthrough: dying and bees. Bees, yay! Bees, yay! Why are the bees back? Dag nabbit! Yeah. You guys really don't forgive or forget, do you? Got another page. Whatever. Dude, what? The bees are still. What the hell? How'd they find me all the way over here? Is this fucking 720? At this point, I was feeling less confident about my chances at survival, so I decided to hunker down and start doing the one thing millennials like me fear most in real life: putting something together. Obviously, one of the biggest highlights of Enshrouded is its building system. It's designed to be easy to use and utilizes some magnetic snappiness to keep you from being one of Canada's worst handymen.
What do you think you might have done wrong in this chair?
This chair here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sakes.
You see the problem now?
Yeah, I see it.
I see the problem? Just try sitting in there, Joe.
Yeah.
You just need to make a special hammer and press the left trigger to bring up all the potential building types, and as long as you have the materials, the world is your oyster. Of course, I wasn't thinking about building anything grand, just something I could slap a bed into and snooze, because when nighttime falls, it's nighttime. Good luck seeing anything an inch in front of you without a torch, and even with a torch, your visibility it's not great. So at least in the early going, it's best to sleep through the night, and it's pretty easy to throw down some foundation and get walls up without any trouble. One thing that annoyed me though was that the undo button in building is set to B. This is mostly on me, but my brain just always assumes B is the back out button, so I'd keep accidentally undoing a wall I built and would have to rebuild it. Yeah, it makes sense that the same L1 button that starts building exits building, but if there's an undo button, maybe you could have a redo button too. That wasn't the end of my own personal incompetence, however, because when it came to putting a roof on my house, I didn't think to use the cheapest material and use the less common material that only allowed me to cover a single corner. Well, this will protect 5 inches of my house from rain. I also needed to stop getting my shit wrecked, so I worked on my armor, or lack thereof. Why are these the crafting results? Why would I want to make clothes that look shitty and ripped apart? I finally have a shirt. They look vaguely like a Flintstone. And fucking bees are here again. Now see, the pants you were wearing before were bullshit. Not like these cooler pants that have many more holes in them. Slightly more armed and barely more ready to go, I fought and died and fought and died and fought my way into the ancient vault containing the first survivor, the blacksmith. The first human to enter the cinder vessel will be our true prototype, and they'll look like an old man went to the Fifth Element's wig shop. Okay, well, I awoke him. I guess he doesn't want to come out, though. He's happy in there. It is a little awkward how they do it, perhaps a budgetary concern since the game has no real cutscenes to speak of, but you basically go back to home base and use a summoning staff to place a survivor on your homestead. A little odd, and I'm not exactly sure where I'm summoning them from, but there they are. And with the blacksmith on my ranch, not only did that allow for the production of kilns and forges, but I could also upgrade to much better armor and start really exploring the world. The blacksmith is of course not the only survivor to find, as you'll eventually load your base up with all sorts of helpful NPCs. Well, helpful in the crafting recipes they open up. Beyond giving you a couple of tutorial-esque side quests, these characters don't really talk to you at all. In fact, trying to talk to them just brings up the crafting menu. This might change later on in the game's production, but at least for now, there are less people and more automatons. You'll get an alchemist for potions, a farmer for crops, a hunter, and others will join up as you awaken them from each heavily defended vault. Fights are not the greatest strength of Enshrouded, but they're not bad either. You can dodge roll, you can lock on, and there's a bit of Arkham-style zipping between enemies. These enemies can be resistant to certain weapon styles, so you'll want to carry a few different ones on you, especially because they have durability. I actually really liked that the game doesn't lock weapon types behind stat checks or specific classes. From the very start, you can wield swords, clubs, axes, bows and arrows, and magic wands and staves. Combined with the ability to respec skill points at altars, there's a lot of flexibility allowed, and that's great. Also, you know I'm gonna unlock that double jump as soon as I can. To expand your altar's capabilities, you'll need to get sparks and flame cores, which you can find at flame shrines and elixir wells in the Shroud. I mentioned the Shroud before. It's a place you can't hang for very long, just around 5 minutes at the start, so you have to be quick with your expeditions. Although it is worth it because you will need materials from the Shroud for later recipes, and clearing out elixir wells can purify that area as well. Upgrading your altar not only expands the area in which you can build, but allows you to place more altars around the world, and it extends the time you can spend in the Shroud, so it's worth going to the trouble. There's definite risk-reward here, and that does give the game its own unique hook to set it apart from other survival games. There are also high-rise towers that act as fast travel points as well, not unlike the towers in Breath of the Wild. And actually, some of the vibes of exploration in this game do remind me of Breath of the Wild, including gliding, although here it's a wingsuit, which is quite a bit different. You won't be elegantly sailing through the skies for several minutes, you'll be diving swiftly to the ground. This is certainly less efficient, but it's definitely funnier, because you can do it from any height, and it's fun to watch my character slam into the ground repeatedly like it's an episode of Jackass. There's obelisks, there's abandoned towns, there's cooking and food buffs, there's notes that lead to hidden treasure and interesting lore. There's just a lot to see and do in comparison to Nightingale, which was definitely fun and had cool vistas, but its realms were a bit more sparse and less alive. I mean, neither game has bustling crowds or anything, although Nightingale actually does have towns with people in them, but Enshrouded's world just feels more natural and more interesting to explore. The cost of this is largely in the performance, as you might expect for a game in early access. My 3070 is not so old that it should really be struggling here, and in fact it was only around 40 to 50% on the GPU load, and the same with the CPU, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on, since neither is being taxed but the frame rate still struggles. There may be some shader stutter at play because it definitely got better the longer I played, but it was still not great. Even with the settings cranked up, it's not exactly a stunner compared to Nightingale's finely focused art direction, so it didn't really pain me to dial things down. But yeah, this isn't one to play for the visuals. For people who aren't as into the survival aspects, you can fine-tune them in the settings, like disabling starvation so you can play at your own pace, to altering damage types to and against, and even changing the speeds of factory production. The amount of player-friendly options available in Enshrouded is great, and it's nice to see a lot of this stuff now, before we've even gotten to 1.0. I'm a fan of Enshrouded, and I'm rooting for it to succeed. It's fun, it's varied, it's got some great exploration, it's nice and easy to build, the fast travel options are convenient, but still likely spaced far apart enough that you have to do plenty of on-foot traversal as well. The combat is serviceable, though you're fairly fragile, but with enough crafting you can mitigate most disasters. I do wish that I could utilize workbench crafting with items from my storage rather than needing to have items on hand, but that may become less of an issue when my backpack eventually expands later on. And as always with this genre, I don't love production timers, especially when sleeping doesn't speed them up, but at least you can tweak that in the settings. So there's a lot to like here, but of course, if the frame rate and performance issues concern you, or you would just prefer to have a finished campaign, there's nothing wrong with waiting for 1.0. It seems like another content update is coming out soon, so I'm curious to see what possible fixes and improvements might be coming. But between Palworld, Enshrouded, and Nightingale, it seems like the survival genre is going to be in good hands in 2025. What? No! Stop! Can't a person enjoy his home without getting stung by bees? Thanks for watching this video. I know it wasn't as much of a deep dive as the UFO 50 video. These indie lookies are a bit more chill by comparison, but I went to a bit of an extra effort on this one, and I'm thinking I might keep the format like this for future ones as well. Next week, I'll be looking at Beloved Rapture, another indie RPG releasing into a very crowded month, and I'll see if it does enough to stand out from the rest of the pack. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see that. I'm not taking any kind of break despite that giant video I just put out, so you'll want to stick around. I have a Patreon for early access to my videos whenever I can get them done ahead of schedule, and a Discord on there you can join as well. So thanks for checking all of that out, and until next time, you'll find me in another castle.